we're going to just go ahead and get started with our formal introduction. My name's Francois Przinski, and this is Chris Johnson. And we're going to go through our course, The Athlete's Mind, with you today. And what we want you guys to think about is the reason why you even signed up to take this course. This fundamental question crossed your mind. What is the athlete's mind? And we would like to share that with you guys, our interpretation of it. Chris is fortunate to be an athlete himself, also being a PT, to understand what goes on in his body as he pushes himself and learns from it, using the body as an instrument or tool itself for learning, not just to read and absorb information by diffusion, sleeping and, information just comes into your head. So the idea is he's going to give you some fantastic clinical relevance. I'm going to try to share with you guys some really neat ideas on what that is neurophysiologically when we consider what is an athlete's mind. Is it just a perspective? Is it all mental? Is there some type of genetic component to this? These are questions that we have. And there is a lot of research that suggests that tracking, being able to sift through meaningful information in a quick manner is the idea behind efficiency of decision making and ultimately picking out what's most important in an athletic endeavor. So that is kind of interesting because I've taught some courses where in PT clinical reasoning where I would put up a chessboard with an arrangement of pieces, and you'll see, the configuration of the pieces, and then I'll just take that away and say, all right, can you guys reproduce exactly what those pieces were? And research shows that for expert chess masters, within 6 seconds, they're able to memorize the pieces on the chessboard, and they're able to deduce what is the most meaningful piece that I should move, giving these configurations. And a little bit of that in the PT world with clinical reasoning is, how do I learn from my mistakes and successes, being able to recognize patterns, and what are meaningful patterns? And as time goes on, am I able to find out what's most successful for a patient? Well, for athletes, it's very similar, but it doesn't really adhere potentially to the 10,000 hour marker. And Chris might be able to allude to some of this as well, that there's research that shows that depending on the type of activity, you don't need hordes of time to find the patterns. If you're able to sift through what's meaningful in a short amount of time, you can be quite successful. And we see that with residency training, fellowship training, being able to have concentrated information in a short amount of time for what is meaningful versus let me just be on my own and try to figure it out. It's going to just take longer, right? Same thing with athletes. So what can we learn from these humans, these athletes, because they are a rare breed, and how can this help us with treating athletes and also treating patients who suffer from chronic pain? Automatically you should say, well, wait, I'm here at a course for the athlete's mind. How does chronic pain fit into this? Very well. So our course is very fundamental. It's running, lifting, being human. And when we consider force and velocity, on this curve we see powerlifting to endurance sprinting. And somewhere in the middle, of course, is P90X, right? So the course outline for us, we're going to go over some of the parietal-frontal circuitry. And this is something that I have presented for the last 2 years nationally at the American Academy Conference for Orthopedic Manual Physical Therapists on how that kind of evolved and what the brain circuitry looks like when we on a continuum, look at a professional athlete to someone who suffers from chronic pain. Being able to see that dichotomy, if you will, is very good for the learner. Chris is going to go through running, pain, sensitivity, and the ecosystem. And he's going to talk real specific about what that means. What is the ecosystem for a runner, and how does that factor into some of the decision-making requirements that you have as clinicians? Performance demands on running, the idea of neuroplasticity and muscle physiology, and a lot of lab time, treadmill analysis, length tension lab, strengthening for runners. I should add also how that correlates to the endurance factor, the push factor at the end, where Chris can allude to some of that and what that means from a neuroplasticity standpoint.